It's quite a while ago, I guess about a year ago, because it was at either Resd or EGX. I was showing heat signature and asking people what they thought of it, and I knew I had a long way to go. I knew there was lots of things missing. There were from even the plan that I had already written out, and also I was going to be flexible. I was going to adapt to whatever people said. And the thing people mostly said was that they needed more context. They enjoyed the actual being aboard ships and beating people up and doing their objectives and whatever, and they enjoyed flying around as well, but they didn't know why they were doing any of it, and they kind of wanted some framing for that. And I had that planned, lots of plans for how your mission should be contextualized, and that basically ended up being the galaxy map and the strategy layer and the constellations of trade routes. It's a bit of a contradiction, but things that look like constellations but are really maps of trade routes between space stations and all this stuff. And that stuff has taken a long time, like all things in game development. It took much longer than I thought. And it all seems super cool, and it does seem like the best way to contextualize these missions, and it does seem like the right answer to the problem. But that stuff is mostly done now, and playing the game, something immediately feels very weird about it, because the missions themselves are just very, very quick. I've also tweaked the mission system so that you don't have to go to a mission computer and get a mission from a listing and then go off and where the listing tells you to. I've just cut out that middleman and just said that as you're flying around the galaxy, I just point out opportunities for missions. So here's a trade route and there's a trade ship on it right now, go and intercept that now and you'll break the trade route. Here's a ship that's carrying something valuable, board it and steal it. Or here's a ship that's got a captured friendly agent aboard, board it and rescue him, and stuff like that. And that really highlights that missions only take about 2 minutes, because the ships, they're not huge and they can't really be huge, and also the the interior generator is not making super tricky, awkward, inconvenient layouts, and then also combat is just quite simple at the moment and very easy at the moment. So there's almost no number of enemies you can't just run in and smash them all up, and that's the biggest problem. But it made me realise that I've kind of spent quite a long time doing context, because people told me to, and because I agreed with them. It was already something I knew I had to do. It was just a question of here are the 8 things I've got to add to this game, which is the most important, do you think? People said that one. But now what it feels like is, it's so obvious now that the thing that's missing is the centre of the game. The centre of the game isn't missing, but it needs more. It can't be 2 minutes long. Or it can't be so straightforward, it can't be so easy. And I knew that as well, but now when I look at it, it's so obvious that I've basically spent a year making the frame for a painting and the rest of the gallery and left the painting more or less as it was. And now it's suddenly clear, hang on, the painting's still like a crude child's drawing and it needs to be a fucking oil painting masterpiece. And I've made this fabulous, extraordinary, elaborate, vast frame. It's an almost infinite frame that can be randomly regenerated, and it's epic in scope, and I've done crazy things about how you zoom to give you a full sense of just the enormity and splendour of this gallery, and I haven't really worked on the painting. And it's weird because I sort of feel like I followed a series of very logical steps to get here. There was no point at which I did the thing I thought, I'm going to take a big risk and do this mad thing. I was responding to feedback, I was following my own designs and intelligently, hopefully, adapting those depending on how things went and how things felt and what it felt like it needed. And now in retrospect, I look like a fucking idiot. It seems like an obviously wrong decision. I should have worked on the interior game almost to the exclusion of everything, no matter what people said, until the interior game was like a game in itself that you could just sell by itself, and then any context you add would, obviously increase and multiply its value. And it would have been easier. That would have informed what kind of context I needed to add, and maybe by doing that I would have realised, who knows, maybe once the interior game is done, it might transpire that, that doesn't really need galactic context. For some reason it feels like, it feels more like a one-off action thing that would be better in more of a Hotline Miami structure, whereas a series of story missions. I don't believe that for a second, but that's the kind of thing that can happen. That's the sort of unexpected discovery you can make. And this ties into my feelings about game design in general, which is that I have very conflicting views about it, where I absolutely love it, and it's my kind of main passion. It's the thing I enjoy most, not just about making games, but about life. It feels like absolutely kind of what I'm meant to do. I don't believe in destiny or anything, but I understand why people do, because sometimes you just click with something so strongly that it feels special in some way. And that's how I feel about game design. And I also kind of have no respect for it at all. I kind of just think it's trivial child's play. It just seems like an idiot could do it. And, I'm a game designer, also programmer, and also sound designer, and also writer, and PR, and a bunch of other roles in the game. And whenever I, see someone's hired a designer, I always think, why would you need to hire a designer? Can't just anybody do design? Which is bizarre and an incredibly disrespectful and rude thing to say about a profession that, takes an enormous amount of talent and experience and skill. So for some reason I just have it in my head that it's just an idiot's thing, like just anyone can do it, even though it's my one passion in life and the thing I care about most. And I was trying to think, how did that come about? Why do I have two completely conflicting opinions about game design? And I think it's because it's the nature of the thing itself. And it's sciencey and it's art, it's technical and it's creative, which is a big part of why I love it so much. And so there are rules, and there are things that are true for multiple games and not just for one, but also each game is different, and each game is a creative, unique thing of its own kind, and wisdom that might apply to that game might not apply to that game. It might or it might not. And the way it feels, the best metaphor I can think of is, it's kind of like when you're building a game, you are just in a completely black room, and you have to make some kind of fire to illuminate it, some kind of light source. So you have to build a fire, which is a long, difficult process, and then once you build it, you've got to light it and make it work, make it into a thing that actually functions. And then as soon as it does, it lights up the whole room, or the whole area around you, and suddenly you can see loads of things. And that's when you first build your playable thing. Once you've got your game playable, you suddenly see so many things so clearly. Like, oh, obviously it'd be brilliant if you could do this. Oh, obviously that doesn't work at all, we've got to get rid of that. Obviously, we can go in this direction. And so, when you've lit your fire, you see the surroundings, and you see there's a wall right there, we can't go anywhere in that direction, but there's a huge hallway over here, and we can go there, and there's something amazing over there, we should head in that direction. But then when you get there, you can't see anything, and you've got to make another fire, so you've got to build it and build it and build it, and it takes ages and takes ages and takes ages. And then you light it, and suddenly everything is obvious about that area. But you don't know what could have happened in those other areas, and sometimes the light might cast, might reveal something that actually undermines what else you're planning to do. Like, okay, now we built a fire there, we see we can't build a fire over there because we can see there's a massive chasm, or something like that. And so when you're doing it, it's incredibly difficult. Or it's incredibly difficult to be right about, long-term future plans. That's why so many people don't like design documents, because you can't know what's going to happen down the line. And I've, preached that myself. But then as soon as you have done it, all of the wisdom and things you've gained are just absolutely elementary. It just seems so obvious to anyone who plays it or anyone who looks at it. And you can disagree about about matters of taste, about whether you think the game should be this or should be that, based on what kind of games you like, and this would make it more like game X, but I don't like game X, so you should make it more like game Y. But the actual kind of logic of, hey, did you know if you do this, it's really annoying for the player, just seems so obvious once it's done. And so when you look at other people's games, which is what I did for 9 years before I tried building one, everything seems obvious. Like you're walking into a completely illuminated space where they built all the fires everywhere they wanted to go. And you can see, well look, you left this whole doorway open, you didn't build a fire through there, why didn't you go through there? You didn't explore that avenue. Or you can see they built a fire right next to a wall. You're like, you idiot, there's a wall right there, it doesn't light up much space at all. But they didn't know the wall was there when they're building a fire, nor would you have. So I think that's what's going on. And I think I've been building this enormous fire to illuminate a huge space, and now as soon as that's illuminated I can see there's just this hole in the middle of the room, like, oh fuck, I should have filled that in first. So decisions that are that are basically impossible to make before the fact and trivially obvious afterwards is basically game design. I think I'm just going to have to accept that. And next work on that interior game. I think that's the only priority now. I've said that several times before, and each time I work on it a little bit, and then I think, okay, that's enough, I'll move on to other stuff now, because that might inform this. And I'll probably do something like that still. So really, I've learnt nothing at all. But I've got a clearer picture of how it fits in now, and I've got a clearer picture of the interior game needs to be substantial, it needs to be something where you just sit there and think and plan and strategize, and then you move, and then maybe you have to sit and think and plan and strategize again. And that's not undoable. The thing that would scare me is if I built a structure where we just can't do that because ships aren't big enough because they don't have enough people on them or whatever. But I'm also playing Far Cry Primal at the moment and absolutely loving it. And I've always loved the outposts in Far Cry 3, 4, and now 5. And those are really like about 5 enemies. A little bit of space. You have a lot of space to go around it, but you certainly have that in Heat Signature. And it's just the mechanics of it are balanced and sort of judged in a way that makes that a really difficult challenge and something you really have to think about if you want to do it stealthily. And the tools for it are really satisfying, and it just has this brilliant progression from total open-ended, just pure planning strategy where the challenge is tough but you can't approach it, and then finding little ways in, just like, that guy's on his own, if I take him out and drag him under this bush then no one will see, and thinning it out and reducing uncertainty, making the big complex problem more manageable, more understandable, and I really envy that, and I really like it, and I'd really like to do something like that with Heat Signature, but I don't know how yet. We'll see how I get on.